Hello and welcome to India Fights Corona. I'm Ankita Mukherjee and this is the show where we get India's leading medical experts to answer our questions on the global battle against the coronavirus. India has just crossed the grim milestone of 30 lakh coronavirus cases, with its overall tally at 30,20,394. Now, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka and Uttar Pradesh are currently the biggest contributors to India's overall tally. Now, that's not all. India holds the dubious distinction of being the country with the highest daily cases now for 18 days in a row. Its current trajectory far more worrying than either the United States or Brazil when they cross the 3 million or 30 lakh mark. Now, those are the only two countries that currently have a higher overall tally than India. The US is at 56 lakh cases and India currently just 5 lakh cases behind Brazil. Is there any silver lining at all? Well, India has also carried out for the first time 10 lakh tests in a single day. India is also faring well when it comes to case fatality rates and recoveries. But to discuss all of these latest developments further, we're joined by Naresh Trehan, Chairman and Managing Director of Medanta, the Medicity. He's also Chairman CII and Healthcare Council. We're also being joined by Dr. Rajesh Malhotra, Chief of the COVID Facility Trauma Center at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. Now, Dr. Trehan, let me begin with you. Obviously, an enormously grim milestone there, 30 lakh coronavirus cases, but we also have India at that rather dubious point of having had more daily cases now for the last 18 days than any other country in the world. What would explain this spike at this point and India's current trajectory? Is it something that we really need to worry about?
See, you must understand that this was expected. First is the point that our population is 3 times, 4 times of any of the countries that you are comparing ourselves with. Second, you saw that it started, basically the rage started in Mumbai and Delhi, where the first travelers came. Then Delhi today, if you look at it, is on a downward trend and almost plateaued and then coming down. So from 4,000 cases a day, we are down to 1,000 cases. Mumbai is also showing some early signs of plateauing. Then there were states that did not get the brunt of it in the very beginning. And they were actually felt very comfortable that how well they had controlled it, only to find out now that it is affecting them as much as any other state. So what's happened is there are 2 things which are very important. One is the fact that this has an RO factor of 3. That means 1 person infected will infect 3 and 3 will 9 and 9 27. So it's a mathematical progression. Second, the point is that if your guard is down, where people believe it's not in our area, so we can relax, that's when the problem begins. So when if you must understand today very clearly, we don't have any cure for it, we don't have a vaccine, and we don't have herd immunity. So what do we have? We have just the 3 things that we keep talking about. We've gone blue in the face. The masking and the distancing and the hand hygiene.
Yeah.
Unless the population of India adopts this very thing as their dharma, we will continue to see it raging through the country. So there were events. There was like the burgas in Delhi and then the labor had to go back. So it has spread far and wide. Now, like we say, in Haryana and Delhi, and even in Noida, we have seen it coming down. But today we have a lot of cases coming from UP, from Uttarakhand, from Bihar, from Guwahati. So it has spread to those places.
And particularly from the south of the country also right now.
And that's raging. I mean, that's raging also. So I'm saying that what you're seeing is a cumulative peak. And it is a high number, 70,000 is a huge number. But we are hoping that where it's raging today, it will start coming down like it has happened in Delhi and Mumbai.
Right. Okay.
So that's where we are at right now.
Okay. Dr. Rajesh Malhotra, if I can bring you in, as India crosses that milestone in terms of the overall number of cases, and 30 lakh seems like a staggering figure. We've also crossed that very significant milestone of conducting 10 lakh tests in a day for the first time. So is that increased testing actually going to make a difference, and a difference for the better?
Absolutely. I think the testing remains the key. Now, as we open more and more, we know that we can't hold on the life because the economy is suffering. The common man wants to go out. The jobs have to open up. People have to go to work. And I think the biggest key will be the testing and contact tracing. Those are the two principles which will work for us till the time we have vaccine and some definitive treatment for this. We have something called gateway testing. So whether you are getting, if you ask me, I think one groundbreaking technology which I am looking forward to is not the vaccine, because I know that takes time. Right. But something which can happen much earlier will be point of care testing. Instead of those silly thermometers, digital, distant thermometers trying to check something which I don't know what it checks. If we had a point of care test which tells a person is positive or negative, whether it's at the airport or at the entry to a hospital or entry to the office or entry to the mall, that will hold the key. And I think that is not a very far target. The countries like Israel are working on that. That's where I would like to concentrate.
All right. And Dr. Malhotra, just explain to us, you're saying that this would be an instant test in a sense, and that's probably what you're saying would perhaps check numbers better than a vaccine at this stage. Am I correct?
So what I'm saying is that we need a test which gives a result out very quickly. And, in our hospital, we have graduated from RT-PCR, which takes 5 to 6 hours, to the CB-NAT, which gives you a result in less than 1 hour. And that has reduced the waiting for the patient in emergency in the ward. So what the key will lie to make it even faster by development of technologies which can test it, say, in your saliva or from your nasal swab, and give you a test report then and there, so that you can actually stop infecting people, because you will pick people who are asymptomatic, pick people who are infected.
Dr. Trehan, would you agree with that, a vaccine may still be some time away, even though Russia, of course, has claimed that it already has a vaccine, and we'll talk about that in a little while. But, a test which can sort of almost immediately or in just a span of an hour or less can give results would be really what is required at this stage?
Yes, for sure. If you can get something that gives you an instant result, of course, it will be a great relief. The CB-NAT that the doctor talked about, of course, many hospitals have it, including ours. So before we take entry into the hospital, we do a CB-NAT to make sure the patient is either COVID or non-COVID, because they are two separate areas completely. So it helps to keep the segregation. And also it helps people who are suffering from other problems to come for treatment without fear. So those are things that have helped. But the point basically is, when you go far and wide into the population, when you are, India is a vast country, and you have pockets in villages where there are 500 people or 1,000 people or 5,000 people, you really don't know unless we test them there. And it's not very easy to get the tests out there also. So I think basically we continue the testing, we continue the discovery. We also know that 90% will recover on their own when it's mild. So these are all comforting facts.
Yes.
But still the crux is that it takes its toll, and like we are unlocking, we will see more and more cases.
Right.
But it comes back to the same thing. If a population of 1.3 billion becomes careless, there is hell to pay.
Yes,
so
indeed.
That is where people should be cautious, not panic, but at least be aware of the fact that there is a lurking danger, not only to yourself, but to your children, your parents, your grandparents. So
it's interesting that you bring that up, Dr. Trehan, because what we're seeing in Europe right now is what appears to be a second wave of cases where a lot of the young are getting infected. It's the youth who seem to have the maximum number of infections among them. It's happening in Spain, it's happening to a lesser extent in France and Italy as well. Dr. Malhotra, what are we looking at over here when it comes to Europe? Is this, is this because of response fatigue, which is something the World Health Organization also warned about? You've had all these very severe restrictions for so many months, and there are those who feel that the infection can't really affect them that much, and they're going out and doing everything they want to anyway. Is that what it is? And do we run the same risk here in India?
Talk about that. I think we see it every day now. I think people have this gay abandon now with the fact that they're really fatigued. They don't care about it at all. And I personally feel that all such people who go around without masks, and if they think they are invincible, they are welcome to join our hospital. We'll put them on COVID duties at COVID warriors because they think they cannot be infected, and we are short of staff. So I think we would welcome them, because I think this is simply foolhardiness. It is out of fatigue. It's out of the mental unacceptance of continued restrictions. But then it will have the same effect today as it would have had 4 months back. So we cannot let our guard down. And the masks are, most of the times now either missing or they are hanging down. People are just tying a handkerchief, which is again not properly put. So like Dr. Trehan said, I think there is hell to pay if the people don't bother. And that's the reason why we are having this rise in numbers, is because people are not taking enough precautions.
That's worrying indeed, whether it's here or elsewhere in the world. But, Dr. Trehan, we've also seen, for instance, the example of New Zealand, which declared itself COVID-free. And yet right now it has over 100 active cases yet again. So if we look at the New Zealand example, can no country really declare itself COVID-free in that manner? What are we to make of it?
Country after country is seeing it coming back. You take Japan, you take South Korea, you take Italy and France. So problem is that there are multiple factors here, and mental health is also a big problem, because people are cooped up. In India, at least we have a larger family support. In those countries, you have very little support. They're all individuals, and if that's why Mother's Day and Father's Day were invented. For us, every day is Mother's Day and Father's Day.
Right.
So the point basically is we have a lot of supports in our friends, in our family, in our extended family. So, but in spite of all that, and nobody's saying that you stay cooped up and you cannot do it forever. I, for one, am for opening up in a measured manner, like we did for the airlines. Now, even data internationally is saying today that after testing everybody who's been on an airplane, there is 1 in 7,700 cases that turned positive, and that you don't even know it came from the plane. Because there are precautions. You wear a mask, you wear a shield, you wear gloves, you don't drink or eat, and the airlines have been made to change the fresh air in the aircraft to double speed, and there are short flights. The middle seat is empty. So there are many precautions that have been taken, and it has shown that it has not spread the infection by travel so far.
Right.
Secondly, we can do this for everything we open in a measured state. There is a safety factor that we can introduce, and it will be economically maybe a hardship still, but it's better than no activity. So I think that the important thing is all this will happen, but you follow the rules.
Indeed.
There is,
indeed. But since you bring up air travel, Dr. Malhotra, quick question to you. India is now considering air bubbles with some of these European countries, which are now seeing an incidence of cases again, a second wave, if we choose to call it that. Would you say that's a little ill-advised right now? What is it that overall the country's strategy should be?
So, Ankita, we have done close to about 1,400 operations in the Department of Orthopedics since the time the COVID started. And the key was that we screened and we tested, and we didn't have a single case of the patient who got infected in the hospital. So the key lies in screening and doing the testing. About the second wave, I'll make a very quick point. When we talk about vaccine, the vaccine protects the person whom we give the vaccine, but it also is 1% less for the virus to infect. So the transmission slows down. So there is a susceptible population. So the countries like New Zealand, which controlled it very early, or Goa and Kerala in India, who controlled it very early, they have a very large susceptible population. And when they open up, the same thing will happen. Unless you root out every case of COVID from your state and seal the border, these things will happen. So the key will remain at, testing them at the entry point and then making sure that they are isolated and contact traced.
Yes, indeed. That's a very important
Otherwise,
point
you'll keep on having these
that you're making. But since you've raised the subject of vaccines, and that really seems to be the big contentious headline right now, Dr. Trehan, Russia has been in touch now with apparently 4 Indian vaccine makers for vaccine production. What do we know at this point about the safety and the efficacy of the Russian vaccine, if at all? Aren't there legitimate concerns that a poor vaccine could be worse than no vaccine at all?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is too early to certify anything right now. And more so, you know what the problem is. Russia has science. There's now no doubt about it. But its regulatory mechanism is not transparent. So we don't know what steps have been taken to put it through the paces of scientific validation, so that the world gets comfort that it actually is certified to a level where it's being touted to be. So wait, I hope they have it. I hope it is the right vaccine. I hope it passes all the tests. But there is a little suspect because of the fact that the validity of their regulatory mechanism is not well established internationally. So I think with caution, we should move forward. Let these vaccines, there are 160 candidates around the world.
Yeah.
Some will pan out. Even if 5 out of the 160 pan out, the world would have a great relief. Now, there are questions about how effective it will be, how long will the immunity last, will it have to be repurposed every year? All those things will come later. Right now, our main concern is only 2. That we make our people, keep them healthy and survive till a point where vaccine comes, which I'm hoping that something will happen in the next 6 to 8 months. It won't be that soon, but 6 to 8 months, I believe. And that also, if you look at the latest Sero survey of Delhi, where the immunity has gone from 23 to 29% in a month. Right. Is it giving us some hope? Maybe that's another thing that will help. And like it was discussed earlier, it diminishes the number of people out there who can infect.
Yes, yes, indeed. In fact, I was about to bring that up. We've had 2 recent Sero surveys. The Delhi one, which has talked about how 29% are now exposed to COVID-19. The Pune Sero survey, even more recently, which shows that, in 5 municipal areas, over 50% of people have been exposed to COVID-19. Dr. Malhotra, is this at all showing any indication perhaps that we're kind of heading towards herd immunity, or is it too soon to say that? What are we to make of the findings of these Sero surveys?
So we must, realize that India is like several countries. We are countries within countries. So it is about a few pockets in Pune. Otherwise, for herd immunity in a country which has a population of 135 crores, you need to infect at least 60 crore people. For herd immunity, for a countrywide thing. So you can imagine the magnitude. And if we are thinking about a herd immunity affecting 60 crore people, you should be looking at 1 crore deaths. So I don't think herd immunity is really that much of a reality. Definitely not on a countrywide basis, maybe in a few pockets, but in a country which is huge and people are going to intermingle, they gradually, it has to reach a homeostasis where everything settles down to the, comparable level. So I think herd immunity is a far cry. Vaccine will take time, but then I do have a different view from Dr. Trehan. I think an imperfect vaccine may be better than no vaccine, but definitely we don't want a vaccine which aggravates the respiratory disease or causes adverse effects. To me, the less efficacy is not as concerning as the adverse effects of an improper vaccine.
But Dr. Malhotra, there are those who raise concerns that a less effective vaccine could in fact cause the virus to mutate further. Is that a legitimate concern?
A less vaccine, to my mind, would be defined as a vaccine which elicits less than optimum response of antibodies and the T cells across the population. If it is causing the mutation or causing the virus to be more dangerous, then it is actually the adverse effect rather than the inefficacy or the less than sufficient efficacy.
Fair enough. Dr. Trehan, India, of course, has set up this vaccine committee, which is going to go into selection, into procurement, and perhaps even decide who is going to get the COVID-19 vaccine in India first, as and when we do have one. Your thoughts on all of this and the fact that at least one Indian vaccine is now in phase 3 trials. So, are you hopeful that something could come out of this country?
We live in hope. And like I said, we have to wait and let the process go on. As you know, that process has been compressed from 10 years to trying to bring it to the market within a year and a half. That's a tremendous technological advancement if the safety is established. I can't but disagree with the good doctor that anything half-baked is going to do destruction in our country. Do not ever go with a vaccine which is not proven by statistical analysis for safety and efficacy. Because half-baked stuff in a rush is going to do more damage than protect people. It'll give them false sense of security. It may not give them the protection. You don't know how long the antibodies will last. So this can be counterproductive.
Right.
That is why I think that if we have to wait 2, 3, 4 months more and get a more reliable, scientifically tested, safety tested, because there is a whole group which is against vaccine around the world. There is a whole very powerful group which cautions against the side effects and the devastating effects it can have. So on one hand, what is the steps that you take when you develop a vaccine? Close to 3-4 billion people around this world will need it.
Right.
The production capacity is such that it's going to take a year and a half to 2 to actually produce enough doses. So what will happen? In the very beginning, once the vulnerable populations will get that. Who are the vulnerable populations? The elderly and the ones with the comorbidities. That will be your first run. And if it is children safe, then you give them to the unprotected children because we believe that their immunity is not as strong as the adults. Anyway, now the point basically is that when we go through the first 100,000, 200,000, first million doses, we will get an idea of how safe it is, how effective it is.
Right.
All right. Now, it doesn't take that long. If you know that India is the biggest manufacturer of vaccines.
Right.
Serum Institute is already manufacturing several million of them in the hope that this Oxford vaccine will come to bear.
Yes, indeed.
If it does, which is the leading candidate, that they will be able to supply to the most vulnerable group, the frontline healthcare workers,
we certainly hope that
the elderly.
Are able to do that. I'm afraid I am completely out of time, so we'll leave it at that for tonight. Dr. Trehan, Dr. Malhotra, thank you very much indeed for joining us on India Fights Corona.